Hello, everyone. My name is Deborah. Welcome to Meet an Entrepreneur. Today, I have a very special guest. His name is Joseph, and I will bring him to the camera. Hello, Joseph.
Hello. Hi,
How
good
are
evening.
you?
I'm fine, thank you.
Well, tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are, and what you do.
So my name is Joseph Garvi. I'm from Norwegian Swedish descent, but I've grown up in Niger Republic in West Africa. And I run a social enterprise called Sahara Sahel Foods, where we work on making foods from wild desert trees.
Well, thank you for that introduction. So, you are connecting today from Niger in West
That-
Africa.
yes, I am from Zander, the second biggest city in Niger.
What time is it there now?
It's 1 o'clock in the morning here.
1 o'clock in the morning, and it's 7 p.m. here. So you stood up to be able to be on this show today.
Yeah, it should be fine. I took a small nap earlier.
Okay. We are glad to have you. So you said you grew up in Niger and you
Yes,
are
I did.
originally from Sweden.
Sweden and Norway. My father is from Norway and my mother was from Sweden.
How did they end up in Niger?
My parents were two very idealistic persons. So when I was a child, they decided to move to Niger to work against the drought and desertification and look at how food could be produced in the dry lands. So they took us in a Volkswagen minibus, and when they packed all our personal belongings in there, including the IKEA furniture that they screwed apart. So my father screwed apart and packed the car from top to bottom. And then we drove through the Sahara from Scandinavia down to Niger.
You drove from Scandinavia through Niger?
Yes, we did.
How many
So
hours?
it took us 1 month.
1 month.
Yes.
Seems to me like you guys are adventurous.
I think so.
Wow, that's amazing. And then when you guys got to Niger, you decided to stay.
Yes, actually, the aim for them was to go to Niger and set up work on doing research on dryland plants here, and seeing what dryland plants can grow in arid environments without irrigation and produce human food.
And then
So,
when I was, yeah, go ahead, please.
no, so I grew up watching my parents do this and getting passionate about these plants.
I was reading a little bit about your background, and I realized that you dropped out of school at age 15.
I did.
Is it because in Niger you didn't have the infrastructure, or what exactly happened?
It may have contributed that I was doing correspondence school from the junior high school onwards. So in a sense, it was a bit isolated and not perhaps a very social environment. But above all, I was feeling that I wanted to do something useful with my time, and I felt that school was taking a lot of time, but not really putting me on the track I wanted to be on. So I was a person who wanted to not just follow the way the world works, but also help, in my way, contribute to defining how the world works. And I felt there was little room for creativity. There was little room for developing your own thoughts, your own ideas, and trying new things in the French school curriculum that I was following. So I got frustrated by that and felt I needed space to do things that were more useful.
It seems to me that you were very mature at that age. So, what do you mean by to do things that were useful?
Well, first of all, I was learning system development. I was starting to program, and I wanted to have more time to do that because I felt that there were lots of very interesting things that could be done with programming. And second of all, I also wanted to be involved and help in the work my parents had started to make, and working on these plants and seeing how we could get them to better use.
So, you dropped out of school at age 15 and then you started working on technology, network infrastructure, and helping your parents as well with the entrepreneurial lifestyle. And they had big objectives that they needed to achieve.
Yeah, well, the objective was to eradicate hunger from this part of the world, and that's still the objective. We still have a big challenge on doing that in the Sahel, but I think we have the solutions in these plants, and I think what we need to do is keep putting them to good use, and we will solve that problem. And I think we have a lot of proof that it actually works when you are doing it.
So, your background also, when I was reading the bio, it said that you speak 6 different languages.
I speak Swedish, which is my mother tongue, and then Norwegian from my father, and then I learned as a child to speak English and French, and then later on, because I took some time before I started learning the local language here, so later on I learned Hausa, and then finally I added Dutch.
That's very impressive. Tell me, knowing all these languages, did that help with your entrepreneurship lifestyle?
Absolutely, absolutely. I realized one thing in life, and it's that things work a lot easier for you if you can speak to people in their language. And it's not just a question of speaking a language they understand, but if you come to a place and you can also speak their language, people appreciate you much better, and things work more easily.
So these are the ways that you are able to connect with your community in Niger.
Yes, yes, absolutely, and also connect with partners sometimes around the world. It also helps with them if you can speak some of their language. So it works in all communities.
Tell me, when you said some of the partners, is it a nonprofit that you have? And if it is a nonprofit, how do you do your fundraisings to help with the project that you're working on?
It's not a non-profit in that sense. It's a social enterprise, so it's meant to work by its own business model. But it's not come to the point yet that we're breaking even. So we're still dependent on having some support from the outside. And for that, we have some support from a foundation in the Netherlands, which has been very faithful in supporting us since we started Sahara Sahel Foods.
So tell me about Sahara Sahel Foods.
So it was a dream of mine to create an industry for the processing of the foods from these desert trees. It started in the late 90s when I was traveling in the field, and I was seeing lots of this, especially this one species called Hansa. The scientific name is Boscia senegalensis. And we were always in this food insecurity dilemma here in Niger, and the work we were doing in my parents' foundation was really helping, but the problem was also really huge. And so I was wondering, what does it take for a farmer to kind of switch his agriculture entirely from growing annual cereal crops into growing trees? And I told myself that if I had the opportunity, I would be growing a lot of this Hansa tree, because it's growing so well in these dry environments. It's so hardy. And I was asking my colleagues at the time, why aren't the farmers producing more of this tree? If you look at its regenerative capacity, if you look at how it produces food in abundance. And they explained that, well, the problem was that the seeds of the fruit are bitter, and the processing for debittering them is both time consuming and sometimes difficult because of lack of water in the villages. So at that time I thought to myself, well, that's exactly why what a small scale industry would be for, would be to create an industry to process these things. So I had the dream of setting up a factory for processing Hansa and perhaps other stuff. But we were always so busy with so much to do that there was never space and time for creating that project. So it took until 2014 before we were actually able to create such an enterprise.
That's amazing. So you work with fruits in the forest.
Yes, of course, a forest in the Sahel is not like a forest in wetter climates. It will always be a bit sparser, but the Sahel was to a large extent actually made out of light forests about 2 centuries ago. And most of it has been removed in order to make space for agriculture. So what we're trying to do is see how can we get these forest plants back, and how can we feed ourselves from them and create a green environment again, whilst getting the food we need to live a healthy life.
That's impressive. So the product that you make, how is it? Go ahead.
Yeah, we make today we make 60 different products from 18 different native Sahelian trees. So we make things like food oils, we make pseudo cereals, things that you can use like couscous or beans and similar. We make fruit powders that are very rich in vitamins. We make nuts and almonds. We make pastry and spices, jams, drinks. So quite a few, a very varied set of foods.
So tell me, how do you commercialize those?
We commercialize them mainly in Niger at the moment, and mainly in the urban areas of Niger, meaning the bigger towns. So we have our own shop here in Zander, where we sell basically all of our products. And then we have partner shops in a few different places in the country, which also help sell our products, but usually don't take all the products, but take a segment of them. And then we have also professional clients like restaurants and boarding schools and things like that we sell our products to.
Wow. Is it affordable to the community you live in?
Yes and no. It depends a little bit on who you ask. Some customers will say it's very affordable, and some will say it's horribly expensive. But we are in a country with a low purchasing power, and you can notice a big difference between the purchasing power here in Zander, where we are based, and that's in the capital of Niamey. So in general, in the capital, people don't consider our foods to be very expensive. And here in Zander, they often are considered a bit expensive.
So since this is a social enterprise, how are you able to really help the community that is not able to have access to these products when it comes to being able to affordable to buy it? Do you guys have programs, or if you do, what is the eligibility? For instance, if there is a school in a remote area that is trying to empower the community to send their kids to school, how are you able to help? Or do you do that?
Well, our social aspect of the enterprise is actually more oriented to the opposite side of the value chain. We are trying to be social, especially towards the rural population and the ones who are producing these foods. So when it comes to the customers, we do our best to find paying customers that can help make the operations work. But we try to use our efforts to create markets, very inclusive markets for people who live in places where they hardly have any revenue and when there's hardly any activity possible to do apart from the traditional farming, which they have a hard time getting around with. So the social enterprising can either be the customers you're targeting, or it can be the people you are sourcing from. And in our case, it's definitely the people we are sourcing from who are the social targets of our enterprise.
So we have some comments here. Let me show the comment. Mustafa Binta said most definitely. And then I have Mamadou Bouka, mes respects, bon courage, endurance, et patience. Is that, I mean, are these people that are in Niger?
Yes, they are. I've met both of them. They're very nice people. We've met through the activities we're doing here.
Okay. Wow. Thank you guys for
Thank you,
watching.
Mustafa, and thank you, Binta, and thank you, Mamadou.
So they also stayed awake so they can watch
Yes.
this. It's 1 a.m. in Niger currently. And these people, do they speak? Probably Binta speaks English.
Binta speaks English, indeed.
Okay. And Mustafa, he wrote in French.
Mamadou, I don't think he speaks English very fluently. He may, but I think he may have some notions of it. But
okay,
usually we speak in French when we talk to each other, or in Hausa.
Would you want to give a shout out to anyone in French or in Hausa?
So, Juma, ina son gaida ku, na ji daɗi kuna nan kuna jin hiran mu. To sai hakuri maganan mu yana a harshen English, amma muna nan muna tare. In kuna da tambaya sai ku rubuta wasika za mu gane su, za mu diba ko yaya za mu amsa su. Mu ji daɗi sosai da kuna nan. Na gode.
I think I got was it Nagoda? Thank you. Is that
Yes.
thank you?
That is thank you, indeed. You see, you're quite good yourself.
Wow, that's impressive. Would you like to give a shout out to anyone in French?
Bonsoir tout le monde. Bonjour à tous ceux qui sont francophones et un grand merci à tous ceux qui sont dans des horaires difficiles, surtout vous qui êtes sur le fuseau du Niger ou de l'Europe ou de la zone entourante, d'être là en pleine nuit pour nous écouter. C'est un plaisir de vous avoir avec nous et en espérant qu'on puisse vous donner des informations qui vont vous enrichir et si vous avez des questions, des choses que vous voulez connaître, n'hésitez pas d'envoyer vos questions dans les commentaires et on va faire de notre mieux pour vous répondre.
Wow, merci beaucoup, Joseph. That's amazing that you speak 6 different languages. And as I can see in the comments that we keep on getting people really appreciate the work that you do in Niger, trying to help combat food insecurity. And you grew up in Niger, you've been there before even you turn age 15, and you've been helping ever since. Wow, that's amazing. Do you go back often to Europe?
I go once about every 1.5 years. So I usually go for 2 months time, more or less.
So currently, do you have a family in Niger?
Yes, I have a wife and 3 beautiful girls.
That's amazing.
So my oldest daughter is 14 years old. And the youngest one, she's 5.
Were they born in Niger?
No, my wife is Dutch, so they were born in the Netherlands, but basically they've lived all their life here in Niger.
Were you able to get them to learn other languages as well?
That wasn't much of an effort. That they learned that by themselves. The biggest job was teaching them my mother tongue, actually.
I can imagine.
That was the more difficult part. But they speak Hausa better than I do, so they're doing very well on that.
That's impressive. So, do you have any upcoming projects or anything that you're working on currently?
Well, we're always working on things here. Right now, we're working on experimenting a couple of new products, which, if they succeed, will be quite innovative too. Usually, we don't tell what products they are until we're ready to launch them. But we always have our R&D working on new things. We're also busy trying to improve the efficiency of our company. We've had a bit of a shock with the coronavirus lately, which created quite a recession, economically speaking. And the shock was very dramatic. So we're working on putting the company on a good track again. Things have been improving the last 1.5 months, but we're trying to get actually our IT tools a bit better developed so we can follow our work more strategically. And we're trying to work on our customers again to relaunch customers that had to stop because of the virus and expand to new partnerships where possible. So it's maybe a bit in general terms, but it's very much trying to grow the company and make things more steady and more secure for the future, which is our priority right now.
Have you been able to expand and offer your product to the neighboring countries?
Not much yet, not much. We've sent some small shipments to neighboring countries like Benin and Burkina Faso and so forth.
How about Togo?
No, not yet. Not yet. But Nigeria, Benin, Burkina Faso are, of course, the most obvious neighbors. But we realize it's a little bit difficult sometimes to work clients on a distance here. We see it's easier to work in Zander than, for instance, to work in the other big towns of Niger because of the distance. And we're working on how we can improve that, how we can better supply cities that are further away. But there aren't really any established working systems, so we need to build them, create them ourselves. We don't find the distributors or other things that you can connect to or plug into that will help you sell your products very easily here. And especially not in the local foods, organic foods, in our case, then even you can add tree foods market. But in these niche markets, you see that it's not developed. The system is mostly developed for imported foods and helping to spread the imported foods quickly throughout the country. But we're trying to do the exact opposite. We're trying to reduce the need for imported foods and make sure our money here stays in the community and turns around here before going abroad again.
That's great. I'm glad that you make sure that the money stays in the Niger community. So do you employ a lot of locals?
We do. Well, everyone is local here. Depending perhaps on how you qualify me, but for the rest, we are all definitely locals. And we currently have 20 employees. Then apart from our direct employees, our full-time employees, we also do subcontracting with a group of women, especially on cracking nuts. And there we have about 400 women who are active. And then we source our produce from the rural communities, and we do that from 70 villages in 3 provinces here in eastern Niger. And they are about 1,500 people involved in harvesting and selling the produce to us. Most of them are women.
That's very empowering. I'm glad that you were able to create those jobs to help with food security out there. Tell me about packaging your products. How do you manage to find the material to package it?
Now that is a brain cracker indeed. That's really been a difficult one, and we've ended up for now using a mix of plastic PET packaging that we get from Nigeria and glass packaging that is recycled material that we source locally, but that comes from recycled products. And of course, lids and so forth need to be, for the glass packaging, needs to be imported from abroad in order to get new lids. But for the glass itself, you can find good-looking packaging if you select it correctly. So we personally are not entirely satisfied with our packaging yet, because the PET packaging that we use, for instance, is actually meant for catering services, for takeaway foods. And technically, it's not always as well adapted to our needs as we would want. But there are no local producers of food packaging here. And basically in the sub-region, it's basically the plastic bags, the sealable bags that are being produced. But for other types of packaging, there's very little available in the ECOWAS community, as far as we know. And importing from China is basically not very practical unless you take a container load at a time. But that wouldn't work for us at this moment. So we try to be creative and arrange the packaging that we do have available and make it look as good as possible. I think it's going okay. I think customers are satisfied for now, but we ourselves would like to see a few steps of improvements to it. Like we'd like to have more sealable packagings, and we'd like to have a more recyclable packaging.
Wow. I don't know if you're familiar with AGOA. AGOA is an act that has been signed in year 2000 to help West African countries export to the US duty-free, I mean, without the tariffs.
I've heard a little bit about it, and also the European Union has a similar disposition. And I think it's a very, very good initiative. On the other hand, we haven't been able to benefit much from it practically yet, because the European Union, and perhaps also the US, but I haven't checked for the US, has limits on what plant species may be used as foods on their markets. So before we can export our foods to those markets, we need to get our foods validated. And that's because the plants we're using are considered novel foods in the European and American communities.
Okay. What about the ACFA?
Sorry?
To be able to commercialize within neighboring countries in Africa.
Neighboring countries in Africa is easier.
Duty-free.
Yeah, duty-free is with some modifications, unfortunately. We feel that the ECOWAS could be working better in that sense on facilitating the free flow of goods between the countries. We still have to pay some taxes for the packaging we import from Nigeria, even though it's produced in Nigeria. And we feel that that goes against the spirit of the economic community we're in. So there are some improvements that could be made to that. But basically, it's not difficult to ship our products to countries like Benin and Burkina Faso and so forth. Market-wise, that's very easy. It's more a question of getting the logistics right and having the right sales channels.
All right. I think we're having a little bit of technical difficulties here, but we were able to get as much as information there is. Oh, Eric said, hello, Deborah. Hello, Garvi. Hi, Eric. Thank you for connecting, and thank you so much for watching. We have few other people that were able to connect as well. If you guys have questions, please let us know, and we will be glad to provide you with answers. Thank you so much. Any other comments that you have? Joseph?
Yes, also hello, Eric. Nice to have you here. No, so what I was saying is that it's relatively easy to send our products to some of the neighboring countries like Benin, Burkina Faso, and so forth. On the other hand, Nigeria has been really working against the spirit of the ECOWAS community in the last year or more. where we have a closed border between Niger and Nigeria since more than a year now, and it's making everything very difficult, actually. And we would very much like to see better marketing integration between the West African countries, seeing that the procedures are easier, seeing that the taxes that are still there could be lifted, and helping us trade with our neighbors, because Niger in itself does not have enough different types of industries in order to serve a whole value chain. So we need to get things from other places too. And if that is less costly, then things would work better and it would be easier to market our foods. It's very easy to forget, but we have stiff competition on the food market here from the imported foods that come from mainly from Asia at very cheap prices. Palm oil from Indonesia and rice, etc. And producing local foods at competitive prices is very challenging. So we notice that we have a lot of we have taxes and fees going on here that don't necessarily apply in the same way to the imported foods, and we feel that the ECOWAS community should preferably be working on how to alleviate it, make it easier for West Africa to consume West African products, and make a better climate for a competitive production here.
Okay, so I was actually asking about the IFCFTA, which is the new, I believe it was signed by the African Union. It's AFC.
Is that what we call ZLECA in French? Zone libre d'échange de la communauté africaine?
That's what it is. It is the African Continental Free Trade. Yeah.
We think that that's a very good initiative, and we'd really like to see it materialize. On the other hand, it was just signed, and then Nigeria closed its borders a few months later. So we're not seeing the things moving in the direction we want, or not making very fast progress for the time being. But definitely, I think it's a good initiative.
Okay. Yeah, I also believe it's a good initiative. The African Continental Free Trade Area or Agreement that will allow you guys to, expand to the neighboring countries like Benin, and you said Nigeria as well, hopefully to the entire West Africa, to help combat the food security, as well as maybe work on the other areas like forest to find more products and offer more than the 60 different products that you currently have.
Yeah. There's actually a lot of things to find in these plants. So when we make 60 products, it may sound like it's a lot, but the truth is you could actually make a lot more. If you look at the biodiversity that we have here, we're supposed to be in the marginal parts of the world. We're supposed to be in species poor and not species diverse areas. But nonetheless, it's still rich enough to really have an incredible potential. And I think a whole lot still remains to be done, a whole lot remains to be created. And I think that's also the beauty of it all, is to bring to life these things that are hidden in our environment, in our area, and that unfortunately have been neglected for a long time now. But I think every region, every nation, every society needs to find the things that are specific to itself, and then learn how to put them to good use. And I think that's when we can really make progress and really have a prosperous society, is when we learn how to work with those things and develop them into great things. And I think that's also something we need to remember. Here in Niger, for many decades, we've been too easily waiting for the international community to come and help us. But the international community will not come and help us develop our specificities. It will work based on the models they understand, they are used to, the things that they know from where they come. That's where they have their expertise. That's where they put their human resources on developing that. And if they were able to go far in those areas, it doesn't mean that we're going to necessarily go on the same areas and aim for the same things. It means that we need to develop our own things, and we need to do that ourselves, because there's not somebody else who will do it for us.
Right. Right. Well, Joseph, thank you very much for being on the show today. I know it's almost 2 a.m. in Niger. We won't take much of your time. We will let you go and get some rest before going back to the office tomorrow. Again, it was an honor, a privilege for us to have you. Thank you for watching Meet an Entrepreneur. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Bye.